Today I'll just chat with you all casually. A friend mentioned an old story to me. Most people who heard about that incident have since moved away from Pinehurst Estates. Late December in suburban Boston wasn't the bustling place it is today. A small diner called the Beacon Grill sat on the corner of Elm and Fifth, its neon sign flickering weakly against the darkness. By 9 p.m. on weeknights, Mike, the owner, would start closing up shop. Jake, the delivery driver, was a college kid who'd moved to Boston just 3 months ago. He was quick, reliable, and desperate for the extra cash. As he wiped down the last of the vinyl booths, the old rotary phone behind the counter suddenly rang, its shrill bell cutting through the quiet like a knife. Mike picked it up. "Beacon Grill, what can I get you?" The voice on the other end was strange, low, raspy, almost mechanical. "Yeah. I need a bacon cheeseburger, extra onions, and a large order of fries. Delivered to 1847 Rosewood Drive, Pinehurst Estates." Mike scribbled down the order. "Got it. That'll be about 30 minutes. The line went dead. No goodbye. Just silence, then a dial tone. "Weird," Mike muttered but shrugged it off. Jake grabbed the order slip and headed to the kitchen. 20 minutes later, Jake was on his beat-up Honda motorcycle, the takeout bag secured in the insulated box strapped to the back. The December wind bit at his face as he navigated the dark streets toward Pinehurst Estates, a wealthy neighborhood on the edge of town where old money lived behind iron gates. The security guard barely glanced at Jake before waving him through. The streets inside were lined with massive colonial homes, their windows glowing warm with Christmas lights and life. But as Jake followed his GPS deeper into the development, the lights began to thin out. 1847 Rosewood Drive sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, shrouded by ancient oak trees whose bare branches clawed at the night sky. The house was a massive Victorian, 3 stories of dark wood and broken shutters. Every window was black. Not a single light. Not even the porch light. Jake's stomach twisted. He checked the address again. This was it. He killed the engine and the silence was immediate and oppressive. No sounds of traffic. No dogs barking. Nothing. "Hello?" he called out, his voice swallowed by the darkness. "Delivery." Nothing. He approached the front door, the old wooden steps creaking under his weight. He knocked. Once. Twice. The sound echoed inside like he was knocking on a tomb. Then just as he was about to leave, the door cracked open, maybe 6 inches. Jake couldn't see who was behind it. Just darkness. And then a hand. Pale. Almost gray. The fingers were too long, the nails yellowed. The hand held out a stack of $20 bills. "Leave it on the step," the voice rasped from inside. It was the same voice from the phone, but now it sounded wrong. Like it was coming from somewhere deep underground. Jake's hands trembled as he set the bag down and took the money. "Aw, thanks. Have a good night." The door slammed shut before he could finish. Jake didn't wait. He bolted to his bike, fired up the engine, and didn't look back until he was miles away. Back at the diner, Mike was counting out the register when Jake walked in, still pale. "You good, kid?" Mike asked. Yeah, just a weird delivery." Jake handed over the cash. Mike frowned as he thumbed through the bills. They felt too smooth, too perfect. He held one up to the light. His blood ran cold. The watermark was wrong. The serial numbers were all identical. And in the corner, barely visible, was a phrase printed in tiny letters, "For the dead." "Jake, where did you get these?" "The house on Rosewood. 1847. "Why? What's wrong?" Mike's hands were shaking now. "These aren't real. They're funeral money. The kind you burn for the dead." They stared at each other in the fluorescent light of the empty diner, and for the first time, neither of them could explain what had just happened. The next night, the phone rang again at 9:07 p.m. Mike and Jake exchanged a look. Mike answered. Same voice. Same order. Same address. "Sir," Mike said, his voice tight, "I think there's been some kind of mistake." "No mistake. Bring the food." Click. This time, Mike sent Marcus, the cook, a former Marine who didn't scare easy. But Marcus came back white as a sheet, holding another stack of funeral money. He'd seen the same pale hand. The same black doorway. "I'm not going back there," Marcus said flatly. "I don't care what you pay me." On the third night, the phone rang again. Mike unplugged it. But 10 minutes later, his cell phone rang. A known number. "You didn't answer," the raspy voice said. "I'm hungry." Mike's blood turned to ice. He hung up. The phone rang again immediately. This time he answered. "What do you want?" "Same order. You know the address." Mike decided he had to see this through. He packed the food himself, grabbed a flashlight, and drove his truck to Rosewood Drive. The house looked even worse in person. Mike forced himself to walk to the door. This time he didn't wait for the hand. He shone his flashlight through the window. What he saw made him stumble backward. Shapes. On the floor. 4 of them. Lying motionless. He ran back to his truck and called 911. When the police arrived, they had to break down the door. The smell hit them first: decay, rot, death. Inside, they found 4 bodies in advanced stages of decomposition. The victims were later identified as the Morrison family: Robert, 52, his wife Linda, 49, and their 2 adult children, Emily, 27, and Ethan, 24. According to the medical examiner, they'd been dead for at least 10 days. But here's what made no sense. In the kitchen, police found 3 takeout bags from the Beacon Grill. The food was fresh, still warm. In the stomach contents of 2 victims, they found recently consumed hamburger meat and French fries, identical to the diner's menu. And on the funeral money, found stacked neatly on the dining room table, were fingerprints. 2 of them belonged to Robert and Linda Morrison, both of whom had been dead for over a week. Neighbors told police they'd heard sounds coming from the house for days after the estimated time of death. Laughter, music, the clinking of glasses. One neighbor, Mrs. Chen, said she saw lights on in the upstairs windows just 2 nights ago. "I thought they were having a party," she whispered to investigators. Another neighbor reported hearing a phone ringing inside the house, over and over, around 9 p.m. each night. But according to the phone company, the landline at 1847 Rosewood Drive had been disconnected for 3 weeks. The story of the midnight delivery spread across Boston like wildfire. Some called it the city's only confirmed paranormal event. But when journalists tried to verify the facts, strange things happened. Records of the Morrison family disappeared. The Beacon Grill's business license couldn't be found. Even 1847 Rosewood Drive seemed to vanish from property records. Some say it was all an elaborate hoax. Others say the government covered it up. But Mike swears it happened. And every December when the phone rings late at night, he doesn't answer. Because some deliveries are better left unmade. The true nature of what happened at 1847 Rosewood Drive remains unknown. But if you ever get a late-night call from an address you don't recognize, asking for a delivery to a dark house, maybe just let it ring.